What's up YouTube, Capital G here, talking Breaker of Shadows in this video. Looks like there has been a mega leak of sorts, and I'm going to talk about a bunch of these cards. Now, I actually have looked over just about all these cards. I shot this video before. It honestly was like too long. It ended up being like 30 minutes. So I'm going to try and speed through these as quickly as I possibly can, try and give you guys some insights as far as my opinions go. This set seems to have a lot of good cards. It's not just going to be all, Solemn Notice and whatnot. First card up is Twin Twister. Already, as soon as I saw the artwork, I thought of Twister and Mystical Space Typhoon. This is a really good card. It's a quick play, and it says discard one card, then target up to 2 spell or trap cards on the field and destroy them. I like this for a multitude of reasons. Number one, I think it'll be really good in the TCG because I don't foresee Heavy Storm coming back anytime soon. And in the OCG, they've had Feather Duster and Storm and all that stuff. Like, we don't have any of those cards. Like, right now, all we really have to work with is pretty much like Mystical Space Typhoon, Galaxy Cyclone, Night Beam, stuff like that. But we don't really have any mass removal unless you're talking about like specifically face-up cards like Fairy Wind. This card, yes, it does have a cost, but it still can easily be a 1-for-1. You can still end phase, use this as like a 2-for-2 guaranteed if your opponent just set the cards. I like it because it being 2 cards, it means you can crack a pendulum scale. Yes, it means you possibly won't be able to activate it always if you don't have a hand. But, I think that a lot of decks really can pay 1 card. You know what I mean? Just to in the end get a 2-for-2 is fine. And technically you can get rid of your own card. So if you have a card that's like, you want to turn off your skill drain or something like that, you can do that. If you want to trigger your own artifacts, you can do that too. You can play it like a double cyclone or something like that. So this card seems really, really good to me. All right, we got Sandstorm Mirror Force. I facepalmed when I saw this card and I read it. I was like, wait, what? So apparently they are going to make Mirror Forces for pretty much every attribute. Maybe not light and dark, but we got the Air Force, we have the Fire Mirror Force that does the direct damage. It's kind of like a burning Mirror Force. This is Sandstorm Sandstorm Mirror Force. It says when a monster declares an attack, change as many attack position monsters your opponent controls as possible to face down defense position, and if you do, the ones changed by this effect cannot change their battle position. I don't like this card very much. We argue that, for something like Air Force, sometimes bouncing monsters can be better than destroying them. And I completely agree with that, especially extra deck monsters. But I can't think of a time where putting a monster face down is better than destroying it or putting it in the hand. At least with the Fire Mirror Force, it does burn damage. So maybe you can kill your opponent with it. But with this, it's like, I get that the monsters can't reflip themselves, they're permanently set, but you still eventually have to kill them. So if there's something that are going to trigger like Burning Abyss monsters, this really doesn't stop that. Like, let's say you set a whole bunch of Dantes or Virgils or whatever, like, you still eventually have to kill them unless you somehow find a way to spin them. I just think like Storm Force is just way better, and honestly this is like the 4th best Mirror Force card. I don't like it because even if you think about it, like, if you put all your opponent's monsters in face down, you still have to use your next battle phase trying to kill them. So like, I don't know. I don't like this card at all. This is actually my favorite card. I can't actually pronounce it right. It's Liberating Arenade. I think that might be it. Anyways, it's a light fairy. It's a pendulum monster. It is 4 stars. It's P scale 3, 1700 attacks, 1800 defense. Stats are very similar to Bountiful Artemis, but the card is so good, and I think I'm gonna this might be one of those cards that make me like start playing in real life again and building a deck because the card is so good. So the Pendulum Effect says, as long as this card remains face up in the P zone, apply the following effects. Effect number 1, you do not have to pay life points to activate a counter trap. It's really actually a good thing. Like, how coincidental is it that Solemn Notice, like the next big Solemn card, probably the next big counter trap in the game, is being released in the same set, and I expect a lot of decks to play 2 or 3 copies of that. So essentially, you can now activate Solemn Notice for free, which the card was already pretty cheap at 1500 life points. But now think about it, like, you can just activate them for free. You can play Solemn Warning for free. Like, this is really good. Like, a lot of counter traps have life point costs, and now you just don't have to worry about that. I mean, and it's even going to be dumber in the OCG because they still have Solemn Judgment. So could you imagine activating the Solemn Judgment for free? Like, that's dumb. And then the second one says, You do not have to discard cards from your hand to activate a counter trap. Hello, Divine Wrath. I know that there's also like Judgment of Anubis, but nobody plays that. No one's really ever played that card. But yeah, so essentially this could be the card that kind of, in my opinion, brings Counter Fairies back, because the problem with Counter Fairies has always been Bounty for Artemis has been so good, but then it's like the deck only had like a couple of other good cards. Now you could easily throw 3 of this in, 3 Bounty for Artemis, you know what I mean? They're both fairies, they're both light, so Honest already works in the deck. And now it's like if you don't open with Bountiful Artemis, and you open with this, it's really good. You know, set those solemn notices down. Don't pay any life points. You can set those Divine Wraths and just flip them over as soon as you want, not have to discard anything. The monster effect is actually pretty good too. The monster effect is actually like ridiculous. It's kind of like really good. It says if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, and it does not have to go to the graveyard, by the way, you can reveal 3 counter traps from your deck to have your opponent add 1 of them to your hand. So essentially, let's say you just summon this and you don't have Solemn Notice, just show them 3 Solemn Notices and add 1 to your hand. And again, it does not have to go to the graveyard. It can get banished or whatever. As long as it is destroyed by battle or a card effect, it will trigger. This is easily my favorite card in this entire set outside of like Solemn Notice. I actually want them to make this a super rare, because it's still going to be cheap, but I kind of want it to be like, I kind of want it to be shiny. But yeah, like real talk, there's a very high chance that I'm going to play like Counter Fairies again, because between this and Notice in the same set, I think they are going to be really good. All right, next we have False Accusations, continuing on with the Sangan storyline. Obviously, he's already been arrested with mistaken arrest, and now you see him in jail with Witch of the Black Forest. I guess this alludes to Sangan's never coming out, and actually Witch being in there is like, are you never going to unban her? She's not even a good card anymore. It's a quick play, just like a lot of the other cards with Sangan's artwork, like Shared Ride and whatnot. This one says you can only activate 1 False Accusations per turn. If the total number of cards on your opponent's side of the field and in their hand is greater than the total of number of cards on your side of the field and in your hand, target 1 face-up card on the field. Neither player can activate the effects of other cards with the same name as the targeted card. This card seems like it could be good. I just don't understand how. Like maybe in a mirror match, like you could have a Cleaford Scout on the field and then your opponent wouldn't be able to use their Scout or something like that. But it's really hard to wrap my head around how you could really make this card like really good, especially considering they put in the only use once per turn. Like it's not a card that lets you draw or anything. Like a lot of the other quick plays with Sangan let you draw cards, so I could see why they didn't, you know, they don't want you using more than 1. Like with Max C and other cards like that, they don't want you using 1 or more than 1. But with this card, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of hard for me to see practical applications, but I'm sure there are some out there. We got some Magic Specters. You see that little, it's a Magic Specter frog shooting a tornado. I thought that was his nose. It's actually shooting a tornado. This is Magic Specter frog. It is obviously wind. It's level 4. All Magic Specters are wind and spellcaster to my knowledge. Actually, I feel like the Magic Specter is like unicorn or something. I feel like the Pegasus or the horse one might not be. I feel like he might be light. But anyways, it's a P scale 5, 1300 attack, 500 defense. The stats of most Magic Specters aren't really that relevant, because not only do they have ways of boosting their attacks in the deck, I think it might be the field spell or it might be one of the pendulum effects that give them like 300 attack. But either way, for the most part, the deck uses its removal to kill its opponent's monsters, and then it just attacks directly a lot. So the deck really doesn't need to beat over big monsters. Let's see. When this card is normal or special summon, you can set a Magic Specter spell or trap from your deck to your side of the field, but you cannot activate it this turn. And then the effect number 2 is it can't be targeted by opponent's card effects and cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Essentially, you have to kill Magic Specters in battle. I think that they're one of the worst design archetypes ever. Like, for you to make an entire archetype that can't be targeted by your opponent's card effects, like when you combine that with all the new Cosmo shit that they're releasing, like Forerunner, well, between Forerunner and, you know, Dark Destroyer, it's like, are we going to be able to target anything? Are cards like Deep Prison just going to die off and like never be played again? Evac's going to be the next card. Like, people just won't be able to play it because you won't be able to target anything. This card is ridiculous. Like, you already thought that Magic Specters had enough ways to abuse their quick plays and their traps, but now this one, as soon as you summon it, you just set a card from your deck. And I mean, you can't use it this turn, but doesn't matter. It's automatic +1. Next up is a card that I saw it and I was like, is that monster Reborn or Monster Reincarnation or something. So it's actually Pendulum Reborn. It's a trap. It says special summon one pendulum monster from your extra deck or from the graveyard. I like this because it's finally a way to get back pendulums from the graveyard. If you happen to use them for exceeds and use them as materials, you know, it's really difficult to get those pendulums back. I wish it was a spell though. If it was a spell, it would have been a lot better. But you know, a lot of times you can use you might use something in the pendulum zone, it gets MST'd, and you never actually get to summon it or something like that. So this is a good way to potentially get those cards back. All right, next up we have a Mirage. It's actually a worm. I was like, wait, what? They're still making those? Like, I thought that Yang Zings were pretty much the only worms in the game. It's a level 3 wind. It's a tuner. Level and 1600 attack, 1000 defense. Stat line is okay. For a level 3, actually, it's pretty good. It says all monsters lose 300 attack and defense for each one of their levels or rank, well, for each level or rank they have. Essentially, this card's like Burden of the Mighty, and since it actually counts itself, because it says all monsters, including yours, it does mean that this guy is actually 1300 the second that you summon him, unless there's like skill drain on the field or something like that. Interesting card. Maybe you could use it in a stun deck or something like that, because again, it's kind of like Burden of the Mighty, but Burden of the Mighty doesn't work in Exceeds. This card does. All right, so we have Forbidden Tome. This was a trap card. It looks like a book. I believe this is the book that this could be the book that Pandora from the Forbidden cards, like Forbidden Chalice and Forbidden Dress and all that. I think this was the book that she was reading. This says declare one monster type, a fusion, synchro, or exceed. If there are 2 or more face-up monsters on the field of the declared monster type, both players send all monsters of that monster type they control to the graveyard. So this seems kind of to me this seems like a bad version of, I don't know, like Exceed Universe. I mean, I guess there might be situations where you're playing against a deck that likes to synchro spam, but like that just doesn't really exist anymore. You rarely see a deck that's going to summon more than one fusion at a time. Like Shadows don't even do that. Maybe there's a chance that they have Winda and Construct on the field, but like that's pretty rare. The only time you really would trigger this would be like Burning Abyss, where they'd have like double Dante, but even that deck doesn't make double Dante as much as it did when Tour Guy was at 3, and a lot of things distribute when they go to the graveyard, so it'd be better if it just returned them to the hand, and also it can hit your own cards, so like I don't like that card at all. All right, we got some Dino Mist cards. This is actually Dynamis Pateran. It's looking like a pterodactyl. It's a water machine. It's level 4. P scale is 3. Let's see, 1800 attack, 1200 defense. It's cool to see some level 4 Dino Mist cards. It actually means Dino Mist will be able to go into Gear Giant X, because before it was everything was like just, you know, level 5, and I was thinking, Cyber Infinity, Cyber Nova Dragon, all that good stuff. But with they being level 4s now you can go into Gear Giant X and whatnot. Limiter is going to be a staple in this deck, by the way. All right, so the Pendulum Effect is the same as all the other ones. If any Dino Mist card you control will be destroyed, you can blow up this card instead to protect your Dino Mist card. The monster effect says when it destroys a monster in battle, you can add a Dino Mist card from your deck to your hand. That's pretty good because it essentially tutors the whole deck, and actually this card right here, which is a field spell, makes that effect a lot easier to pull off. That is Dino or Dynamic Power Load. Right here you see field spell. First off, you get a little stat gain. All Dino Mist monsters on the field gain 300 attack and defense. Makes this guy that 2100 Cyber Dragon like a lot of the other cards. And then second, when a Dino Mist monster you control battles, your opponent cannot activate effects until the end of the damage step. So basically all your monsters become Armades, but it's even better because even when your monsters are attacked, you get that effect. So this card is really good. It means your opponent can never be like, they can't attack your monster and then use like Honest or Collude or something like that. So it's a really decent card. Really decent card. We got a Super Heavy Samurai. This is obviously a synchro. The artwork is really nice. It's level 9. They don't know what the attack is because the homeboy's thumb is over it, but it's 2500 defense. It requires a tuner plus a non-super heavy samurai or non-tuner super heavy samurai monster. It's always treated as a super heavy samurai card. Okay. And then the first thing is pretty much linked to all of them. When it's in defense position, you can use its defense as attack, or you do use its defense as attack during damage calculation. Effect number 2 is if you have no spells or traps in your graveyard, this card gains 800 defense for each monster your opponent controls. I assume most of the time your opponent's going to have at least one, which would mean that this guy would go to a pretty beefy 3,300 defense. And since that becomes his attack during damage calculation, it's going to be really freaking hard to kill this card, like really, really hard. Next up, we have another Goyo card. I've been very underwhelmed with the Goyo support, but this one at least looks cute. It's a level 3 Goyo, so I mean, maybe they want you to add 3 and 3 and make the big Goyo Guardian. I don't know. This is Goyo Defender. It's an Earth Warrior Synchro monster. Level 3, 1000 attack, 1000 defense. Requires a tuner plus a non-tuner. It says once per turn, if the only monsters you control are Earth Warrior Synchro monsters, minimum 1, you can special summon 1 Goyo Defender from your extra deck. So essentially, if you go into Goyo Defender, if you go into Goyo Defender and it's the only monster on the field, you can summon another copy of Goyo Defender, which is kind of cool because maybe you... Well, you know what? Maybe you need another monster or something like that. It's a chump blocker. I'm trying to think how you can combo. I mean, I guess you could go into a rank 3 XC, but that's about it. Like, that's all I'm really coming up with as far as that effect, because these cards aren't very powerful. Effect number 2, if this card is targeted for an attack, you can activate this effect until the end of the damage step. This card gains 1000 attack for each Earth Warrior type synchro monster you control, or it has to be another card. It can't be itself. So let's say that you summon the defender, you use its effect, you get another defender. It will mean that if the card is attacked, it will become 2000, which is fine for a rank 3, but in the grand scheme of things, it's actually not that hard to get over a 2000 attack monster. I would recommend you summon this card pretty much never. It just doesn't seem very good. Next up, we got another Dino Mist card. This is the Stegosaur, which must mean it's this one right here. Of course, it's a water machine. The Pendulum Effect is identical to all the other ones. 1600 attack, 1800 defense. The monster effect says when another Pendulum monster you control battles an opponent's monster, after damage calculation, destroy both battling monsters. I can see that being pretty decent against monsters that you couldn't normally get over, especially high defense monsters. Maybe your opponent has something that can't be destroyed by battle. Something like a Marshmallow, a Spirit Reaper. It comes up every so often. A really big token, a Shikanaga or something like that. That's the main use I could see. Or if you just want to crash into a monster that's big as hell in attack position that you couldn't be able to kill, you could kill that too. Seems pretty decent. I like the other one a lot more, honestly. It just seems better because it's self-reliant. This card needs another card on the field to really even use its effect. All right, so we have don't want to talk about this one. Don't talk about the Performer Power card. So there's a Performer Power card. This is Performer Power Raincoat. It's a beast effect monster. It says when a card or an effect whose effect would inflict damage to you is activated, you can discard this card. You take no damage from that effect. So it's to me, it seems like an anti-burn card. Like if your opponent activates Ring of Destruction, or I guess even a monster that has a burn effect in it, so you can just discard this card. You can, you take no damage from that card, so you don't necessarily negate and destroy it, but you do save yourself from taking any potential damage. Seems like a good tech against burn. Effect number 2, during each player's main phase, you can discard this card, target one Performer Power or Odd Eyes card you control during this turn. It cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. I would think it would be better to use it when it's destroyed by card effects, because then you get a 1-for-1. You attack into a Mirror Force, your opponent Regekis you summon into a Torrential, you just, discard this card, bam, 1-for-1. You keep your monster, and you don't have to worry about it dying that turn. All right, we've got Pendulum Storm. It says destroy all cards in both players' pendulum zones. Then you can destroy one spell or trap your opponent controls. This card would be so much better. It probably would have been like a staple if it was a quick play. The main reason it's kind of slow to me, because if your opponent sets up their full pendulum zones, chances are they've already like searched some shit. They've already pendulum summoned all over your face and you're losing the game now. But I mean, I guess it's a good counterplay. Maybe you survive with a Torrential or a Solemn Warning or something. If you can get this card, if you can survive the Hailstorm that is the Pendulum Summon, yes, you could crack their Pendulum Scale. You can potentially hit another back row card. It becomes potentially a +2. I just think it's so slow. Like, you have to essentially let them Pendulum Summon on you. Like, no one's going to set up a full scale and not Pendulum Summon. I just don't see that happening. We got MegaCapitalG Sonic. This says target one MegaCapitalG monster you control. Until the end phase, double that monster's attack and defense, but any battle damage it inflicts is halved. I don't see a reason to run this card. MegaCapitalGs don't really run things over in battle. They use monster removal to kill most of their opponent's monsters. So, like, what's the point of... Maybe this is a one-of, but, like, MegaCapitalGs don't need to get big and beefy because that's really not how they win. We've got Magic Sea Castle. Is it Aegeon? It's actually a water machine, rank 8, question mark attack, 3000 to defense. It's generic, but its attack is actually really kooky. This is like one of the silliest cards I've ever seen. Effect number 1, you can banish one random face down monster from your opponent's extra deck. Then this monster's attack becomes the banished monster's attack. I don't like that because it's so random. I mean, maybe yeah, you hit a opponent's monster in their extra deck that's really important to them, but why would you want your monster that you spent 2 8s on to be so random as far as picking its stats? And you're probably going to summon this thing in defense anyway. Effect number 2, you can detach one Xyz material, target one of your opponent's banished fusion, synchro, or Xyz, return it to the extra deck, and if you do, destroy one monster with the same, or destroy one monster of the same monster card type, fusion, synchro, or Xyz your opponent controls. That seems even more situational and more random than the first effect, to be honest, because it's like, okay, let's say you randomly banished a fusion, then you have to wait for your opponent to summon a fusion to even use this effect. Like, this monster is like fucking terrible. This was like this effect seems like it was designed by a 6-year-old or something like that. Like, it's the most random thing that they could think of. All right, next up we've got the Shiranai, these little fire zombie archetype. This is called Shiranai style reincarnation formation. It almost looks like it could be a Fire Fist card, doesn't it? It's a field spell. You can only activate one per turn. Effect number 1, once per turn while you control no monsters. You can send a card from your hand to the graveyard. Activate one of the following effects. Target a zombie monster with 0 defense. Special summon it. That's really good because there are so many zombies in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! That have 0 defense. The first one that came to my mind was Zombie Master. A second effect, you can target one of your banished zombie monsters with 0 defense and return it to the graveyard. And if I'm not mistaken, just about all of this archetype has 0 defense. So this seems pretty good. Now, again, you can only activate this card when you can only use this effect when you don't have any monsters. So kind of have to watch out how you use it. And let's see. Oh, they added some cards. Wow, they did add cards. When I looked at this article before, this was the last card. It's called Unlucky Blast. It's a troll card. It's a burn card. It's a normal trap that says you can only activate one per turn. Target one face-up monster your opponent controls. You take damage equal to half that monster's current attack, and then your opponent takes damage equal to the damage you took. So it's kind of like a watered down Ring of Destruction, but mainly a burn card because it doesn't kill the monster. It works really good with Lava Golem. Like, summon Lava Golem, burn your opponent for 1,000, activate this. You both get burnt for 1,500, but your opponent took 2,500 this turn. I see why you can only activate one, because if you activated multiple in a turn, that'd be a lot of battle damage. If this card on the field is destroyed by your opponent, you have to you inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. So that's actually not that bad. Your opponent blind MSTs it. If they use Galaxy Cyclone on it, they just take they don't get a -1, but they just take 1,000 life points. These are Performer Pals. I'll talk about those in a later video. It's another clown card, and man, there's a whole bunch of cards that got added here to this. I think I'm gonna probably break this down in the 2 videos because none of these cards were actually here when I did this video earlier. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. As always, let me know what you guys think of the cards that I talked about in this video. My favorite card so far easily is right here, because I think that this makes an entire deck like possibly relevant again. Thank you guys for watching as always.